on a coach on the sidelines, that would be a lot different than going helmet first against another player. This is more than a boys' club. This is plantation and slave, folks. And you're going to say, well, they get paid a lot of money. Not enough for this shit. Like Nick Nolte said in North Dallas 40, Seth, they just want too much. They want too much. And when you see players walking out of the game now because they don't want to get hurt anymore, or they want to be able to play with their kids or whatever the hell it is, you got to think in the back of your mind that maybe they got sick of the whole thing too. So, to me, and then you put the final thing in together with it between Saban and Goodell, and then you have the Kaepernick situation where the league literally sabotaged the whole thing to be a bow wow and got outmaneuvered. The whole publicity group, and the NFL will use its muscle and its power to use its media partners to spin the thing by saying that, Kaepernick didn't want to play football. Kaepernick did want to play football, but they prevented him from playing football. And 3 years later, probably doesn't mean as much because Kaepernick doesn't believe he's going to play anymore anyway, and he had a chance to one-up him. And bravo for doing it. Black man smarter than white men. I just want to point out that it is possible to be black and be smarter than a white man. Thank you very much. These should be revelations to my audience. Good God.
And Mr. Moohead,
yeah,
I saw his workout, and I must admit, I was very impressed. He looked like he just came out of college. Like he didn't lose a pet. In fact, he got better in his 3-year off period. It's crazy.
Well, you know what they say about those workouts. It's just like, when they have, they're coming out of college and they pick their receivers and they, it's easy without pressure on and without the speed of the game to look. Nobody questioned that even at 32, Kaepernick has a strong arm. Nobody questions that. Yeah. I'll go as far as saying that Colin Kaepernick had one really good year, but I really don't think that Colin Kaepernick was destined to become a Hall of Fame quarterback. That isn't the issue here. The issue is you don't want the man to play in your league, then don't do the dog and pony show. And if you do the dog and pony show, don't get pissed off when you get shown up. Because I would have done the same thing Kaepernick did. Because at that point, it's beat the man. You're just trying to beat the man.
What were they saying about how he canceled his workout? Like he rechanged locations? What was that all about?
It was strictly so that he could say, I'm allowing the public in and I'm allowing the press in because the NFL refused to do it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, hey, somebody's going to see me who will be able to report on it. Because the way it was before, the press wasn't allowed in, and whatever people within the organizations, whatever gophers they sent to the goddamn event, those people, you'd never hear from them. It's not like they'd be on ESPN with Max and Stephen A. That's not going to happen.
Mr. Moohead, question for the panel, including you. If Colin Kaepernick does not get signed, do you think this is his last chance?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it was his last chance years ago. He wasn't going to play. This was an opportunity for him to show the league up. And I'm just, hey, Brittany, how you doing? I'm proud of him because, how do you stand up against a billion dollar bully? How do you do that? And the answer is you have to fall on your knees and ask for remorse, or you walk away with your pride, you walk away from the game.
But one thing I will say, Mr. Moohead, is he kind of was thriving off of the whole lose everything, gain something even if you lose everything Nike commercial. He had to have known that he wasn't going to get signed again, even before the
He did. That's why he canceled the thing at the last minute. He made it into a press event, to a social media event.
Basically, he looked like he's trolling the NFL.
That's what he did. And he's smarter than they are because they were trying to troll him, and he reversed it.
And he got $60 million too. I mean,
Go
ahead.
I was going to say, by throwing this thing at him on a Saturday afternoon when most NFL executives are watching college football games or preparing for their own game, he was sabotaged to begin with. So his whole part of changing the venue and everything, it really is a stroke of genius, and it ended up making something out of it. Because you can't tell me that with all the shitty quarterbacks we've seen in the league in the last 3 years, that someone could not have used Colin Kaepernick, regardless of how good he was at any given time. There's no question that he's better than a Mason Rudolph or about everybody we've had for the Browns for the last several years.
Yeah, but Mason Rudolph can start a fight on a field and only get a minor fine. I mean, the fact of the matter is...
Or round up his high school buddies and make some kid fucking lick urinal cakes.
Yeah,
He's good at that, too. Apparently.
Yeah. I mean, Mason Rudolph is no prince. And neither is Baker Mayfield, and neither is necessarily anybody who plays the game of football. We're not here to judge people's characters, but we're just looking for equality. And the fact is there's no equality, and being a member of the Cleveland Browns just doesn't help you at all. I mean, for OBJ to come out and break the news that he gets tested multiple times a week for drugs when he's never had a drug conviction.
Wow.
How is that possible?
That 5-second video.
Mr. Moohead, can I add something to it?
Yep.
The NFL says that kneeling before the flag or whatever is so detrimental to all these owners, but yet they let in people who kill dogs, domestic violence, Des Bryant hitting his own mom or whatever. The case of Ray Rice. I know Ray Rice is a different situation, but with all and Ben Roethlisberger, the rape allegations, like you would think something like that would render you from the league, but no, Justin Blackman's weed situation, he's out and blackballed, and it's like they take the minor things and say, okay, well, if you're a pothead or if you're kneeling for the flag, like that's definitely a lifetime ban. But if you're, in domestic assault cases, sexual assault cases, even in some cases murder, we don't really care about all that.
I'll tell you something. I have a rule of thumb, and that is never trust a man who wears an American flag lapel pin. Never trust that person. Never. Nothing that will come out of their mouth is anywhere near the truth. And that's what
they only like hammer and sickle.
No. I mean, you look at all the presidential candidates, from both parties. Always lapel, I'm an American. That's not something to be proud of.
They're all corrupt. They're all corrupt. They're shaking hands with communists, China, but behind closed doors. I don't want to hear any of that crap.
You can be a patriot and not wear it on your lapel. The reason you wear it on your lapel is you want to be identified. It's like a fraternity pin.
Yeah, preach.
It's really nauseating to me.
Preach.
And, if you really believe in the American flag... if you pledge me.
That's exactly what I was thinking. On your uniform, son.
But Mr. Moohead, as much as some people hate on Colin Kaepernick for the decisions he's made, he actually became marketable. He was able to market himself throughout the year despite being out of the NFL.
Look, I mean, there is a difference between being good and being notorious. Ask Kim Kardashian. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you're a Kardashian and you appear in a nudie film and a porn film, and you go on to become a social media phenomenon, there is notorious, and then there is great, and there's a big difference. And Kaepernick will, he's not making as much money as he would have had he remained a quarterback in the NFL. That's for certain. But at the same time, I mean, I'm not saying, he's seeking attention. They're all seeking attention. The thing that amazes me is the NFL can't lose a single battle here. They're just so overly vigilant with the way they stay on top of these players. And coming out, it's a bad look when you say what we really want from Myles Garrett is remorse. That is really a bad look, because what you really should want is a safer game, or equipment that leads to a safer game.
You are aware that you were right about Myles Garrett. He does go rogue a lot. Like, it's a defense, and he just kind of does his own thing, man, out there. I see that. He's not a team player.
Not at all.
I'm surprised the Browns don't cut him, but you're not going to get any more from that guy who goes rogue.
Well, and he's a narcissist to boot. I mean, and, my feeling is people are saying, well, how are the Browns going to do, now that he's, gone? I think they're going to be fine. The fact of the matter is, whatever the Browns are going to be, the Browns are going to be. Myles Garrett wasn't going to change that one way or the other. My feeling, though, is when you're looking at a New England Patriots organization, when J.B. Collins a number of years ago was their star, linebacker, and then he stopped trying, they just got rid of him. If you find somebody who's able-bodied, who stays within the scheme and plays according to the way his teammates around him are playing, you're not going to get the athleticism and get the sacks necessarily. But if the guy's in the right position, you're not going to give up the big plays either. I don't think we're going to miss Myles Garrett that much. I really don't.
I don't think so either. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys don't even resign him.
I mean, what do you guys?
I don't know about that.
I don't think that they're going to not sign him, but really, Jim, what do you think? I mean, do you really think at this point we're standing here 4-6 on the season? Do you really think it's going to be that big a deal losing Myles Garrett for the rest of the year?
It's going to change some of the dynamic on the defensive line only because of Olivier Vernon being out. And the other people getting a chance, though. But, I mean, this might be something that we find out about other players. I mean, look how Joe Schobert stepped up basically Thursday night, which, he played probably his best game of his career. One thing I really wanted to bring in, though, was we were talking about other people doing things like this. Rob Gronkowski, did you see the interview with him? He was on one of the talk shows. And there was a play where Gronkowski basically was held multiple times going down the field. Ball gets intercepted, and he came back and basically blasted some dude from behind who was kneeling down. And Gronk
did a WWE elbow drop to the back of the guy's head.
Yeah, he busted the guy's lip open, and yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was one of those situations where Gronk says, you kind of go black in your head, not black, but you black out in your head for a minute, and your emotion totally takes over what's going on. And I think that was part of what happened in this Myles Garrett thing. But we've seen so many times where he has let his emotion get control of him. Where you have somebody like Nick Chubb, who when they mic'd him up for the game the other day, they were desperately trying to find something that he said, because most of the time it was him grunting as he was trying to run through people. It was like there was very little for him to talk about. It's a different kind of player, and that's the way that they said. Supposedly, a friend of mine from Pittsburgh was saying that allegedly Garrett was talking smack the entire time. Well, they all do that. Every one of them does that. If you listen to these guys getting mic'd up, and they're all talking about, I got your number, meat. I got you this time. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. Especially some rookie quarterback out there. They're doing this all the time. That is part of the game. They've been doing it for years. So, I'd still like to see them win more games than they lose. The opportunity is there. The teams are there. Beating the Steelers the way they did, it's why we can't have good things, is what I told somebody immediately afterwards. We have a great game, we kick their ass, and then we have this stupid thing at the end of the game. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something else. And in the name of a player who is no longer with us, okay, a player who lived to be 41 years of age. He didn't even get to the average 57. Former Cleveland Brown, two-time Cleveland Brown, Zeus Orlando Brown, was blinded by an official, who threw a flag into an area that it had no business being thrown into, hit him in the eye, blinded him, and ended his career. But Zeus charged him and nailed the referee.
Remember that?
And you remember all that,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, there were, being out of football, he was picked back up by the Ravens in 2003, but he remained with the team until being released in 2006. You know,
It sure wasn't the same though after that incident.
he wasn't the same after that. But what I'm saying is he knocked an official down and he got back into the league. And he lost his eyesight and nobody compensated him for
Well, how
shit
many
from the
chances
league.
have they given Vontez Burfict to come back and terrorize fucking offensive players?
Until he finally got suspended this year. Yeah, but you know, the other part was James Harrison decided to open his big ass mouth and throw a tweet out there about this is the most horrible thing ever. And my response was I retweeted was pot meet kettle. I mean, I'm like, give me a break, James Harrison. Yeah, Ray Lewis, why don't you put it out there? How about Conrad Dobler? Why don't you comment something on this?
Yeah,
Like,
I want to find out something
Jack
about
Lambert.
the criminal
Conrad
justice
Dobler.
system. By God, I'm going to James Harrison first thing.
Yeah, it's the whole thing to me just
Brett Dreyer could be an iffy player.
it's you know, all around the league it's happening, and it's a boiling cauldron, and it's going to bubble over. And you know, the fact of the matter is, it becomes more and more obvious to me every day and every week that goes by that the league just is an evil empire, and that the players are stupid for playing the goddamn game. And you know something? And I know that you're saying, well, geez, with a Wonderlic score of blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like, what jobs are they going to do in society? Well, you know something? You know, you can have a job that's an honest job and not make a lot of money, but have your self-respect. And I really wonder how easy it is to stay in the National Football League and keep your self-respect. I mean, how much does Rashard Higgins have to take now that they're saying, oh, well, Kadero Dodge has moved up? How much does it take? Is Freddie Kitchens looking for remorse because he said that he was available to play earlier health-wise than Freddie said? Is this Freddie's white man posture saying, I want remorse from you, Rashard, or else we won't target you? We're going to make you block, and we'll get you hurt that way, blocking bigger men. We'll run you into a pile and twist your leg up, but you're not going to see the ball. But Kadero Dodge will. How long before you're just done with it? At what point? It's hard.
I believe his name is Hodge, not Dodge.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Well, whatever.
Dodge is what he has to do.
Who in the fuck is he?
Yeah, Dodge is what he's got to do
I
to
think-
keep from getting hurt.
No, it's Harold Dodge. No, it's Kadero Hodge.
I think that's the entire point of this, is that we've gone 3 minutes here mispronouncing his name, and he's still playing more. What's going on with this? There is a problem here, and it starts, and a lot of people said this too. It starts with the head coach. They're going to win some games here going down the stretch because they have some easier teams, but they're going to lose some too. I'm definitely sure they're going to lose a game or two before the season's out here, and I mean, they did a good job of taking care of Baltimore last time, but all of a sudden that guy's just blowing through everybody. So
here's another thing that came out of Freddie Kitchens' presser today. They asked him, what about David Njoku's status? Well, he's kind of day-to-day right now. Is he cleared to practice? I think starting Wednesday, yeah. If nothing has changed from today or tomorrow, I'd say write that down, but I would not type that up right now. Then they said to him, what about Njoku's Instagram post saying he has been activated? Freddie's response, yeah, well, okay, he told you. I mean, where is the organization? Where is the control? Players are posting on their Instagram whether they're active or not active. What does Freddie Kitchens have control of? This is a dangerous fucking game to have no leader going into. And of course, Olivier Vernon's still out, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He gets his preferred spot at the Golden Corral. They have a seat saved for him or something.
I don't know, but he's not coaching. He's not, you know.
Do you see the Miami game being a possible trap game, considering the?
Yes.
You know, yeah, that's what I was going to say. The same thing too.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, there's just way too much dust storm. You know, there's too much activity surrounding this team that is non-football, and you know that Ryan Fitzpatrick is that's who their quarterback is going to be. I'm imagining he has thrown for 400 yards before in football games for the Buffalo Bills and for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's not capable. This is not like Mason fucking Rudolph or these guys who've never played. This is a 36-year-old veteran who, if you give him time to throw the ball, he can hurt you. He can also hurt himself by throwing interceptions. He's kind of like
trying to wear his wide receiver's clothes.
I remember there was an EA Sports boxing game, and one of the characters was called the Unpredictable Fighter. And he would come out, and he was either like fucking Mike Tyson, and he'd take you out in a round, or he was a bum, and you would just knock him out in a round, right? That's Brian Fitzpatrick. You never know what you're going to get. He's Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get with him. But it is a potential trap game, yes. And the Browns, I don't see how these players could really have their minds sharp and focused. And Freddie is in no way.
Not only that, but all the rumors about Dolphins tanking, they've won 2 out of their last 3 games, and they're averaging over 20 points a game.
That's right. I mean, and that's the whole thing about this, is that it's where you are at a given instant. The Browns beat the Ravens because the Ravens were fat, feeling good about themselves. And I think the Browns caught the Steelers, who were reading the press clippings about how lost the Browns were, and the Browns came out and played up to their talent level. I think trap games are predicated upon players who maybe think they're better than. And the Browns players, we've got more talent than the Dolphins, but it doesn't always play that way out on the field. And
but this isn't the first time the Steelers taken the Browns lightly. They did that in that game, I think, last season when y'all had that draw with them. They did the same thing.
Yeah, and there have been a couple of close games, but they would laugh at the end saying, same Browns, they just shot themselves in the foot. And this year we didn't. And, the bottom line is that there's so much in the middle in the NFL, record-wise. There are very few great teams, but on any given week, this is the hardest season. If we were doing a pick'em league, which I won't do, my feeling is trying to guess from week to week with a bunch of 5-5, 4-6 teams. I mean, you look at the fucking Raiders now, or even with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can't tell me that those two teams have parity, but between schedules, underachievement, injuries, arrogance, or whatever it might be, there's a vast number of teams right in the middle, and the Browns are right there. The Browns are good enough to beat anybody, and they're bad enough to lose to anybody.
Yeah. Other than Baltimore and New England being the obvious 1 and 2 seed, that 3 through 6, all and even 7 through 9 have almost identical records, like 1 game apart, separates all of them.
I look at what happened with the Steelers, and I say, why wasn't the defense playing that fast against any other opponent? This is coaching. This is all about effort. This is about leadership. Mike Kitchens should not be a coach in the NFL. We're talking about whether Myles Garrett will ever get an opportunity to play in the NFL again. Freddie Kitchens should not be allowed to coach in the NFL again because he has proven himself incapable. The defense looked like they were really running to everything. And, they were in the backfield. They were reading plays. They were in the place they were supposed to be. They tried screen passes. The guy would get smacked to the ground. They were running blitz stunts that were getting to the quarterback. They were relentless, and they didn't let up. I mean, it's like, and we complain about the fact that, oh, geez, you know, the defense will look okay, but then they give up 2 mammoth plays in a game that cost them the game on little dinky screen passes and shit. And it's like, where was everybody on the right side of the field, you know, when Denver threw a screen pass, right? You know, it's like, where was everybody? Well, everybody was accounted for against the Steelers over and over again. They were in the right place. So they're capable of doing it. They're just not being coached up and away. And the players are just, you know, posting shit on their Instagrams and not paying attention to the guy in the locker room. And it just doesn't work. It to me is ridiculous. You know, it's a sad thing to watch a team that you know is better than what they're playing. You know, Baker Mayfield, I don't think Baker Mayfield was great against the Steelers by any stretch of the imagination. But what I saw, especially in the long throw to Odell Beckham, if you watch that play again, and I really can't emphasize this enough, he went back to throw, and there was a pressure coming from his left side, which is nothing unusual when Greg Robinson's playing. And the pocket kind of shifted, and what he did, instead of rolling out to his right, he stepped up in that pocket with his weight forward, not off his back foot, and threw a fucking strike to OBJ. And this has been what has been missing. You know, I'm watching Baker Mayfield. People saying, was Baker Mayfield, is he really not that good? Nobody's good when they're throwing off their back foot, when their mechanics are fucked up. But when he's stepping forward into the throw, he's accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look again at Stephen Carlson's touchdown reception, which was a dandy, that ball was thrown on a rope. And the defender didn't even have a chance to get his head on a swivel to see it coming, and it just whoop, stuck right in Carlson's chest. It was a high-risk pass. But the fact is that if you looked at Baker, he was stepping up when he threw it. If you're looking at other things where his feet aren't set, he's rolling to the right, he's lobbing the ball up in the air, throwing the ball off his back foot, it's no wonder. That's the difference between a 57, 58% completion quarterback with turnovers and a 66% quarterback with fewer turnovers. The mechanics are important. Before the show, I was looking at, you know, statistically, Lamar Jackson at 66% completions, thrown for almost 2,300 yards, 19 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions with an 106 quarterback rating for the season. And he's getting protection, and he's a threat to run with the ball, but he is stepping up into the pocket and delivering balls with confidence.
And they've got a running game with Ingram, too.
That's right. They've got the ability. Even Edwards was breaking off some runs. You know, they've got a player there with time and with the ability to scare the opponent with his legs. But the question about Lamar Jackson is it arm good enough? Is he accurate enough? But when your mechanics are good and you have time and you can step up into your throws, it makes all the difference in the world. And that's, I think, what Baker Mayfield's problem is. You know.
So, Mr. Moohead, do you see the Browns or Pittsburgh possibly coming back and taking the AFC North? Or do you think Baltimore's kind of already ran away with it?
Baltimore's already run away with it. And I told you back then that they were the best team. They played a miserable game against the Browns. I mean, turning the ball over and then falling behind and, you know, all of the things that they can't afford to do, because once they become one-dimensional and, you know, basically the quarterback running the football and getting brought down after 8-9 yards, the clock keeps running. They're built kind of to, if they don't get big defensive turnovers, it takes them a little while to score the football. they fall behind and they have a problem on their hands. And I think that's likely to happen in the playoffs to them. But, again, with this vast 4-6, 5-5 competition, they're playing teams that in any given week can just suck a big moose.
So it is possible Cleveland could make a run at one of the wild card spots.
It's not likely because, in my estimation, the Browns won't be able to put back-to-back kinds of games. By the way, the Steelers game has been flexed to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which is interesting because they've moved a game to 4:25, the Chiefs and Raiders, because nobody thought the Chiefs and Raiders would amount to anything, but they're tied now. They're going to play in the preferred 4:25 slot, and the Browns are going to be moved to 1 p.m. And what that really means is I think the league is going to take traffic away from the Browns-Steelers rematch so that fewer people will see the dirt and filth that the Steelers dole out.
Oh, okay, got you.
That's what my belief is about that. Because honestly, the Browns-Steelers rematch should be, if they had any balls whatsoever, that would be the game to televise, just because I want the fans to see what the Steeler organization is really all about. And, that's, I guess, the way I look at it. And Freddie Kitchens saying the Browns are going to stand by Myles Garrett. It's like, what are they going to do? I mean, really, in the end, Freddie does what he's told to do. And, he's going to stand by him. And, whatever he gets, he gets. If he ever comes back, that's fine. Freddie won't be around to greet him next year anyway.
This just in, Chrissy Hines says, "What the fuck are you doing to my song?"
Hey, Mr. Moohead, would you rather the Browns finish 8-8 and miss the playoffs, or would you rather them run the table and finish 9 or 7 and 10 or 6 like they did in that one year and miss it? I think that would sting a little more if you went 10-6 and had a strong 10-6 finish or 9-7 and missed it. Oh,
I always like to see the Browns win. The problem is I don't want to see Freddie Kitchens there, and I don't want a weak second half schedule to allow him to Hugh Jackson his way into another year, because everybody. The thing is, as bad as the Browns were under Hugh Jackson, and they were bad.
Yeah.
And Hugh is an ass of a man. He's a fool, but he did have NFL credentials. He did coach a 500 season in Oakland.
Yeah, he did.
But he couldn't get along with anybody in the front office, and that's his thing. He's an egotist. He can't really get around dealing with other hierarchy people.
I drive this bus.
Yeah, that's right. That's you. But the fact is that he at least had credentials. Freddie Kitchens, no credentials whatsoever, and the team is running amok. There's way too much going on behind the scenes with this team, and the coaching staff and the head coach has no control over it. It's, I'm putting up comments. Hi, Rare Breed. How you doing? Baker did what Baker had to do to be the leader of the team, and this, you can't stand up and sit there and say there's justification for swinging a helmet at somebody, but at the same time, he didn't stand up against Mason Rudolph because that was his high school friend, and I find that objectionable because I don't expect him to say bad things about Mason Rudolph.
They didn't go to the same high school. Mason Rudolph went to high school in South Carolina.
Oh, well, where was it that they played together? They know one another.
They were opponents. He went. Baker was
they were at Oklahoma State.
He went to Oklahoma State.
Gotcha.
And they were also roommates for like a 2-week quarterback camp at Peyton.
Oh, that's right. And so they got to know one another that way. I'm sorry, but thank you for correcting me. But it does make you wonder. It's like, What's wrong if you're telling the truth to say that it was Rudolph who initiated the fight? I mean, if you're just going to stand up there and just, say, that you were sick to your stomach watching that helmet being swung. Well, I was really sick to my stomach watching Ponce kicking him in the head.
Well,
Tell it like it is.
I understand, Mr. Moohead, but it's like if let's say you push me to the ground, it doesn't give me the right to go back to my house and grab a gun and shoot you either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know any player in the NFL who saw what Pouncey did as a bad thing. You support your quarterback no matter what. He didn't know what happened, or he didn't know Rudolph started it. You just support your quarterback if you're a lineman. So he did what he had to do. If he didn't get involved, his teammates would judge him.
I know. And I agree with you. But you know what the stupidity is? That's the same stupidity that leads to police brutality. You're not allowed. If you see your partner as a policeman committing an act of brutality, you go silent because you don't talk against your partner. You don't talk against other people who wear the badge. You don't talk against that. Those things are wrong. Those things are not good.
It's the blue wall silence is what they call it.
Yeah, and I don't like that kind of thing either. But I agree with what you're saying. I definitely agree with what you're saying, Jake. And we've seen it before in Cleveland when somebody didn't stand up for somebody that they were called out as being a coward.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the NBA in the 90s. The rule is if you get off the bench or leave the sideline, you get a fine. But if there were players for the Bulls that Steve Kerr said he was the only one that didn't leave the sideline and get fined, Michael Jordan called him out for not going out and throwing a punch. He had to fight with his teammates when he saved himself money in a suspension. But Michael Jordan said he betrayed the team by not getting into a fight when there was a bench brawl.
Well, now you can't. They police it better now because if you come off the bench,
that was like 15 games. Yeah,
game suspension.
Yeah, that was like a 15-game suspension. But it was a 1 game before, so you just forfeit the game essentially. But Michael Jordan called his teammate out for not getting into this fight when he knew it would cost him money as a rookie. So it's the culture of sports. It's not great.
But I think after that Pistons-Pacers brawl, you've seen the NBA is a lot more cleaned up on that kind of stuff.
A little
minor incidents.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Write me a check and I'll be right out there with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
LeBron paid Richard Jefferson's fine when he groin shotted that player. Remember that? He sent Richard Jefferson out for 2 minutes to groin shot a player and get kicked out, and LeBron paid the fine for him.
I don't care how anybody else feels about it, but I'm going to go on record and saying I don't give a shit if Mason Rudolph suffers 100 more fucking concussions for the shit that he pulled and being a total chicken shit asshole.
Okay.
I agree. When you get hit in the head by a helmet and you immediately turn to the referees for help, I think that he's a little frat boy pussy. I agree with you 100%. And
not only that, he didn't have his helmet on, and he's charging a 270-pound man who's being held back by his offensive line.
That's right, stupid idiot. I mean, I agree.
Fucking jack off. And you want to make fucking weaker kids. You think it's funny to make them fucking lick goddamn calcified dog shit on the way home from fucking school?
Well, maybe he needs to go party with Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, and that is the fact.
South Carolina.
You're right, Kawaki. I mean, yeah, while Garrett, and being kicked in the head and all of that kind of thing, I just don't, you can stand up for a player without, what it looked like to me is that it was like an excuse for Ponce to commit an act of violence. It's kind of like, well, this shit's going down, so I'm going to get my lumps in.
Yeah.
And it's a total lack of control, and it's a lack of respect for the game all the way around. And it's, what it also is? It's a lack of respect and understanding from player to player about the gravity of the game and how dangerous it is when the players themselves are animals and are being bred to be like pit bulls, and the 2 pit bulls slash each other's throats and one of them dies. It is a manipulation of sorts that is really distasteful to me. They're paying dues to the same players association, but they're doing this to one another every week.
Preach.
It's it's divide and conquer. It's been that strategy from the beginning of time, and I guess they've been divided and conquered. It's really unfortunate.
Just think about how they want a fighters unit in the UFC and boxing. How do they have a unit when they're fighting each other? Doesn't make any sense. They can't go together unselfishly and form a unit in contact sports because you're fighting against each other or hitting each other. It does not make sense to ever all get along when you're meant not to by the people in that locker room.
Yeah, it's.
Mr. Moohead, do you think Myles Garrett can be coachable? I know we talked about him going rogue and doing his own thing out in the field. Do you think he can be coachable?
Yeah, but the problem is when you're in the league and you play basically for two different coaches, two different coordinators, and it just keeps, you don't, what it's like? It's like a child who doesn't have parental authority in their lives.
Oh.
And, it's one of those things that has always bothered me about the criticism of life in the inner city. And you look at the percentages within the African American community of children whose fathers stayed away from home intentionally.
Prowess rate.
Aid for dependent children. It was a better financial deal for.
Blame the welfare state.
And I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, you're never going to get a disagreement with me, but when you have a lack of parental control in your life, things like that are going to happen. And I really look at a guy who's talented like Myles Garrett. Had he been taught the right way from the beginning, and not been made to appear to be the savior of Cleveland football, he wouldn't have come out and said what he said about Greg Williams, about, he only let me do one or two moves, and I've got a whole bunch of moves in my bag of tricks. And, and I'm going to go for 20 sacks. And, it's like a child who has no control. It's like a child who goes into a store and shoplifts something with their friends just to be in with the crowd without thinking about what they're doing because at home nobody's shepherding them. He needs a coach to really sit him down. You know what Myles Garrett needed was Marty Schottenheimer. Needs a guy who's a real meat and potatoes. These are the rules. Wear a tie, motherfucker. Have some respect for your teammates and have some respect for the game.
Or a Bill Cowher.
Right. I mean,
they were cut from the same cloth.
You can be a player's coach, but instill discipline in players. You can't be one of the guys. You've got to be separate and distinct. And Marty was good at that. But they played hard for Schottenheimer, and they respected Schottenheimer, and they respect Bill Belichick. They fear Bill Belichick. And that keeps some of those people in line. When you were a kid, you were fearful of getting a whooping if you did the wrong thing. I mean, fear is a motivator, and sometimes when it comes to childish young men who are making millions of dollars, it is the antidote to being selfish and narcissistic.
Yeah. And I also think college is a very bad place to develop those skills because a good coach who has that big name, say if Saban doesn't like a very good athlete, he's a 4 or 5 star prospect. He has 2 or 3 guys he can play in front. He cannot play you for 3 years, ruin your draft stock, and you have to listen. So when you get that little bit of freedom in the NFL, you're already getting paid. How are they going to act when they finally have some say in their own choices?
Yeah, I mean, it's, but I think Myles Garrett could be a great football player with the right coach at the helm. The problem is the apple is already, there's too many bad apples in the barrel. And what happens is the other apples get bad. And the genie has to get put back in the bottle, and you got to get a head coach in there who's going to get control of this. And now it's going to be difficult because OBJ is there, and he's doing his thing, and Myles Garrett's doing his thing. And you got all these guys who are going rogue, doing things their own way. It really requires somebody to go in there to do a job that is not going to be popular with the players, but he's hired to make them better men and better players. And if you make them better men and respect the game that they're playing, They will play hard for their teammates, hard for their coach, and they won't embarrass themselves with the organization like Myles Garrett did. They will play the game with dignity and play it hard.
Mr. Moohead, would you be okay with Marty Schottenheimer coming in as head coach next year if they said they were willing to pull the trigger and give him a chance?
He has Alzheimer's disease.
Oh,
Yeah, he's on the verge of dying, dude.
Oh, never mind.
That ain't gonna fucking work.
Oh, at least we tried.
Well, that would put him right about Hugh Jackson level, though, as far as candidacy.
Oh, yeah.
Probably still be a notch above Freddie. Jeez.
I watched his interview on
clean shaven
ESPN.
too.
Yeah, I watched his interview on ESPN, and he was complaining about the cold weather and the snowy weather. And his wife was like, honey, we moved to Tampa, Florida 2 years ago.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he had no idea he was in Florida.
Well, don't tell Jimmy that. He
He
might
had a
hire
Joe Biden moment, but it was really sad to see on TV. And they aired it, too, which made it worse.
Well, don't tell Jimmy that. Jimmy Haslam may hire him regardless.
Yeah. You know, all I can say is this. The talent is there, but the leadership is not. And, you can have the best shooters in the infantry on your front lines, but if they're not following command, and then who are they shooting at? Bad leadership leads to bad results, and that's how it all goes down. Freddie Kitchens is not a good leader, and it's making talented players undisciplined and making them less optimal in their effectiveness. I don't think we're going to miss Myles Garrett. I really don't. I think that somebody who plays hard and plays their position and does it correctly, it's not going to exceed what Myles Garrett has done, but it may be good enough to offset the mistakes that Garrett kept making, and it's possible that, working together, and using the depth. I think we're going to miss Ogunjobi more, to tell you the truth, interior on the line from run stoppage. I think that we're going to need more help from the interior of the defensive line, because Ogunjobi really takes up two men. He's strong, he's swift, and he's got a good quick move. So at any rate, that's it for the show today, and I appreciate
you got beating the Knicks tonight. I know you guys play at New York tonight.
Boy, it's been a rough last few games. And it's like I told you earlier about the Cavaliers. There's a point at which a team realizes that, you can play really hard, but if you're playing selfishly and individually, you're not going to beat teams who are sharing the basketball. And the Cavaliers have to go back to trusting one another, and it is a long and growing period. And we beat the Knicks before. We're going into Madison Square Garden. They're 3-10. We're 4-8. And to be honest, if the Cleveland Cavaliers, the way they beat the Knicks before was up and down the floor and sharing the basketball, because the Knicks are a slow plodding team. And if they end up getting stuck in the half court dribbling the ball, they will lose to the New York Knicks. They will. This is what we expected from the Cavaliers. There are flashes that, hey, these guys might be able to play. But then the second they get a few wins under their belt, they go back in the bad habits. And John Beilein has to address the issues. It's a hard job with 19 and 20-year-old guys.
Not only that, you got an 82 long grueling season. It's hard to stay focused and maintain that course that long,
Yeah. So, all right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in to the Monday edition here of Moohead Radio. Back again on Friday. We'll pick the game, and we'll see what happens as the week progresses. Thanks to the people on the panel, and I'll see you again on Friday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.
Moo.
All right. See you later, Mark.